Charlie Kirk, I guess, on the phone here with the person behind the hate account, Chaya Raichik. The hate account
totally normal,
TikTok.
well-adjusted higher Raichik from what's that cult called that she's part of?
I don't know.
I forget the Hebrew extremist.
Either way, she's a religious extremist and a complete nutcase that ended up people figuring out, who she was. She was identified at January 6th, and now her identity has been revealed to the world, much like she did to unsuspecting teachers and other gay, queer, trans people by blasting them on her hate account. So here she is now speaking with Charlie Kirk about what she characterizes as the rise of trans-identifying kids because of, you guessed it, the very scary Chinese communist TikTok.
Do you think that the rising amount of kids identifying as trans is largely because of TikTok?
Yes, I think it is absolutely a social contagion, and I think TikTok is a big driver of that.
So about 45 seconds, explain to the older listeners that might be skeptical of that why. They say, how could somebody become trans because of a social media app?
Well, the idea of TikTok is to target kids, right? You don't see really a lot of older people on it. It's very kid friendly, and the Chinese algorithm, they feed this stuff to American kids.
The Chinese algorithm.
All right, pause it. So I thought the algorithm was done with math and like numbers and symbols, but I guess this one's in Chinese letters, algorithm. So that makes it demonic.
This one is just all like Chinese symbols and like occasionally like a sickle and hammer.
Yes.
So I read every few of them. If you look into it, it's not HTML. That's not how they do this.
No. I mean, and they put hidden messages in there.
Also,
that's Chinese Communist Party at work.
I just gotta point out, what would this woman do without TikTok? It's her whole fucking thing. Like, what would she do if TikTok got banned? Where would she steal these videos of these under 18 kids just expressing themselves in a place that they find to be safe for themselves to do so, and putting them on blast in front of a bunch of weirdos aged 40 and above who are attacking these kids? What would she do without that content to mine from? She would be nobody, nothing.
Yeah.
Well, this is projection. This is, these are people who are engaged in a propaganda war. Like people, Charlie Kirk, libs of TikTok, associated right-wing demagogues who use social media specifically to propagandize their unpopular opinion. They're always trying to hide their ideas, launder them into the mainstream. And so, of course, they, either disingenuously or, strategically believe that their opponents are doing the same thing because they have positioned trans people, the LGBTQ community, other minorities groups, not as just people trying to live their lives, make content online, largely vlogging, personal content. A lot of stuff that they hate is just like barely political. It's just people living their lives and then like daring to have like blue hair on like a subway platform. And, they want to believe that they're engaging in the same kind of work that Charlie Kirk and his ilk are, which is like laundering a type of like political message into what otherwise like, a mass of sheep who are just there to be like grifted. But that's just not how everyone engages in social media. Some people are just trying to, have fun.
Yeah. Also, I just want to note that when she says social contagion, when people talk about genocidal rhetoric towards trans people,
Yeah, it's a moral panic. It's just the kind of thing that, it relies on people. Now we have mass media. Now people feel more comfortable coming out of the closet. So you see a lot of people, you see that reflected in media. And it's easy for people who have been, not in tune to the way the world actually works to pretend like trans people just came out of nowhere. That 20 years ago, no one was trans. And now, like, if you look at people who, I think there was a survey that came out of some research firm, like how much of the population people believe is trans versus how much the population is actually trans. And there's just a really wide gap. I think the actual, I hate to like poorly quote like
the country is trans, right?
Yeah.
I think it was like 40%. People thought like 40% of the country was black, which is like not true. It's like 14%. They thought like 10 to like 15% was trans. And it's like, I think less than 1. It's
60% of Zoomers are trans now.
Exactly. It's easy
it's spreading like wildfire.
Yeah, no, those are telltale sounds, the telltale signs of a moral panic, of a sex panic being run by people who are very, very afraid of losing their like social position in the sort of like access to, class, advancement that it usually provides. And, they're afraid of being replaced by Zoomers. It's very, transparent, and it's a deep, deep history of like in Republican ideology of these kinds of moral panics, especially targeted at, LGBTQ groups.
We saw it happen in real time when Matt Walsh went on Joe Rogan's show and claimed that like millions of kids were transitioning, and they had to check it in real time, and they had to bring Matt Walsh the unfortunate news for him that it was like something like
a few thousand over a 5-year period. Yes.
Right.
So it was, he thought it was millions. Yeah. He'd done a whole documentary on this topic, but didn't know basic facts, and overinflated them by thousands times over about how many trans kids were in the country. But that's exactly what you guys are saying. I mean, this is the inflated moral panic that we hear. But let's start over, try to hear this psychopath's words also, in as clearly as possible.
Algorithm is a Hindu Arabic word, so a Chinese algorithm. Like, we are creating a super monster.
Double hatred of America. Oh my God.
Do you think that the rising amount of kids identifying as trans is largely because of TikTok?
Yes, I think it is absolutely a social contagion, and I think TikTok is a big driver of that.
So about 45 seconds, explain to the older listeners that might be skeptical of that why. They say, how could somebody become trans because of a social media?
Yeah, freak out the old freaks that never logged on.
Well, the idea of TikTok is to target kids, right? You don't see really a lot of older people on it. It's very kid friendly, and the Chinese algorithm, they feed this stuff specifically to American kids. So they're feeding these trans activist content, telling kids, look, go on puberty blockers. You might be the opposite gender. Maybe you'll be happier. And I believe that it's a really sophisticated algorithm that's directly feeding this to our children.
That's exactly right. I just want everyone to understand. I mean, TikTok, owned by the Chinese Communist Party, we have enough evidence for me to say this. I on good authority believe, and I think any rational person would, that the Chinese Communist Party military installations are programming the algorithm to make our children more likely to be trans, to try to get young men to be ashamed of their country. The CCP has a gateway into every single one of our kids via TikTok. Why are we putting up with that? That's a political question. We're going to answer that.
Well, free market, baby. Free market. The kids want it, so they get it. So they want that Chinese Communist Party, baby. They love it. The kids love the Chinese Communist Party. Keep saying Chinese Communist Party. It doesn't sound scarier the more times you say it, Charlie Kirk. There. Psychopath.
Actually, we should continue to let our children know that the communists TikTok brought to you by a communist. So if you love TikTok,
you love communism. There we go. Perfect. That's perfect for our psychological operation.
This idea, I mean, ludicrous that China is inflicting on us this social contagion of transness, just like they suggest they did with COVID, to make us weaker and hate America.
Do you know that they also implemented the social contagion of left-handedness? Like, suddenly there's so many Americans that identify as left-handed.
Well, they're doing it to themselves too. I mean, this is from Bloomberg. China's first clinic for transgender kids opens in Shanghai. Like, that's 2021. Like, wow, they really, like, that's very nihilistic. Not only are they taking down their main enemy, they're trying to take down themselves as well.
I mean, same thing with COVID, right? Yeah. I mean, that's how you really, really get up on the Americans. You kill some of your own people. You go after trans people in your own country just so it can be exported to the United States. That's the real bioweapon we're at play here.
Yeah, it's less about, it's less about what's going on in China and more about what China represents for American hegemony abroad. But, that is a little bit of a complex idea for like the average Charlie Kirk listener. So really all they need to know is the traditional, xenophobic talking point of there's a foreign actor, foreign in the sense of non-white and also non-American, who is trying to degrade American culture through some sort of, propaganda campaign that turns your kids trans, OnlyFans that makes your white daughters date black people. You know, now your sister-in-law is an Islamist extremist. You know, it doesn't necessarily have to be China for Americans to feel this strongly about it, but there is this, you know, America only does well when we have an outside threat. That's why people always harken back to the time post 9/11. Yeah, a lot of people might have died, but for a moment, I didn't feel like I was, you know, not part of the American tapestry.
Yeah, right. I can't believe someone like Chaya Raichik is now.
A Freudian case like her?
They have TikTok banned her. They should ban her for spreading lies about the platform. But like, I think Republicans like to pretend like these platforms are left owned because it also makes it seem like their content is actually uniquely good instead of uniquely bad.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, no, they're scratching each other's back with all this shit.
Yeah, I mean that's what I was trying to say earlier about the whole Rumble conversation, right? Where it's just like they don't love that the marketplace of like ideas doesn't necessarily favor them, so they have to make it about where it's rigged against us.